Part 10. April, 76. Cheer up, mate, Sirius says, trying his best to be consoling. It could be worse. James cracks one eye open, narrowed and bleary, and Sirius presumes, full of thwarted love. The little circles under his eyes, the dark twists to his lips, the wild tangle of his hair, long uncultivated, gives him the air of a complete lunatic. Sirius supposes that's what love does to a bloke. Fills him up with false promise, false hope, the occasional grope here and there, and leaves him with nothing at all in the end but the desperate need for a wash. Still, a good friend would never mention the smell. It's no use, James groans. It's no fair. I didn't do anything wrong. I saved him. And this is the thanks I get? You're the perfect hero, Sirius soothes. With or without trousers. Not many can say that, I'll tell you, and if she doesn't recognize what she has when she has it— Let's kill Snape, James interrupts. We can hide the body. It doesn't matter anymore. She threw grapefruit juice in my face. I've no one left to please, nothing left to hide. Let's just do it. We can cut his body into little pieces and no one will ever be the wiser. No one will ever know he's missing. People will thank us. Only one problem with that plan, Sirius grins. Finding somewhere big enough to hide his nose. We could put it in my sorrow, which is as boundless as the ocean, James says. You've got to stop having fire whiskey for breakfast, mate, Sirius says. Eventually that stuff will kill you. Makes me stronger, James mumbles. Besides, look, I finally got real stubble, now that it doesn't matter what I look like, since there is no one on this earth worth impressing anymore. You do realize you lost me my girlfriend. Yeah, I suppose. It's lucky for me no one else is willing to sink low enough to be your best friend. Remus is my vice best friend, James says. If you were killed, he would be instated, and probably do a better job. He'd never do it, Sirius points out. James hates to admit this is probably the case. He's not bloody-minded enough. Who would blow things up with you, I'd like to know? Who'd make the walls transparent in the prefix bathroom? Who'd put hippogriff manure in people's shoes? Well, Peter, he admits is an afterthought, but he wouldn't be nearly so good at it. Admit it, mate, you're stuck with me. Explosions and gratuitous nudity are all you have left. We're back to the good old days. My life has no meaning, James bemoans gloomily. Yes, Sirius insists. Yes, it does. I bet you don't know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow and tomorrow. James mumbles into his elbow. I don't care what tomorrow is. It's just as bad as today, only I get to dread it first. No, Sirius is trying to be patient. On the one hand, Evans is a fool. And you believe any idle Slytherin gossip, then by default you're a fool. On the other hand, she's been a fool just in time. Damned if he's going to let James turn into a whining, consumptive, broken-hearted noodlehead just because it appears he wants to turn into a whining, consumptive, broken-hearted noodlehead. Sirius knows better. Sirius knows he can't possibly want to slip into unattractive misery for all time. Tomorrow, he presses, tomorrow is the 1st of April. So, James mutters. Sirius waits for it. It could, he reasons, take anywhere between 10 seconds and a full minute. When it happens, it will certainly start in James's shoulders. Oh, James says. His shoulders get a little firmer around the edges. Exactly 15 seconds. Not as hopeless as Sirius originally thought. Oh. And we haven't done any planning or any restocking, and we certainly haven't got any of the latest, newest, and smelliest from Zonkos, Sirius adds, with a note of finality, of doom, of wicked improvisation. How many dung bombs do we have? James sits up, a gleam of purpose behind his murky eyes. He runs his fingers through his hair, gets his fingers stuck, and gives up. 57? Nearly enough. Damn. What else do we have? Sirius pulls out the inventory from behind his back. I knew you'd wake up to it, he confides, grinning from ear to ear. Shudley cannons, He taps the long roll of parchment with his wand, whispering the password, and watches cheerfully as it unfurls before them, updating their current resources. James surveys it with an air of professional purpose. Right. So we've got... Yes. And that'll do for the mirrors. Sirius, you realize there's not one thing on here that sets things on fire? We have been terribly remiss in our duties, Sirius agrees solemnly. And I'm near cleaned out. He pats his pockets with a mournful air. Another unforeseen consequence of renouncing the comforts of the familial hearth. Loss of the endless resources at my disposal as the young master. I could bully Regulus, but I don't feel like listening to his whining. Of course, what this means is that 1976 will be a year of great improvisation, requiring all our resources, and no distractions whatsoever. But there's always matches. So, in a way, James begins, sounding slightly cheered. Blessing in disguise, really. Sirius finishes, patting him on the back. Come on, let's go get you cleaned up. I don't want to know, Remus insists, putting his hands over his ears. Hear no evil. I am a prefect. I'm a prefect. All right, Sirius says. He settles at the edge of the bed, bouncing up and down so the bed frame creaks. Can I just give you hints, then? All right, I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with arting, and it's the answer to the question, what noise will Rodolphus Lestrange make any time he says something threatening to anyone? I didn't hear you, Remus says. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear you. I'm not listening. La 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 la. And the next bit rhymes with bung doms, and it has to do with, oh, to be in England now that April's there. Someone who rhymes with great big slimy git drape, and whoever wakes in England sees some morning unaware. Sirius takes one of Remus's wrists and tugs his hand gently away, finger making a slight popping sound as it's wrestled free of his ear. We've figured out a way, Sirius explains, to use 57 all at once. It's like a bomb made of bombs. We're going to put it in his lunch. It's a lucky thing I wasn't listening, Remus mutters, or I would have had to report your trespasses immediately. Sirius grins. And it's an even luckier thing that I have no idea what you have 57 of, and that I'm assured that your mention of bombs has nothing to do with actual bombs, or I would have to lock you in a closet and throw away the key. For the good of humanity, of course. Really, Mooney, Sirius says affronted, as if we would really use bombs. Such triteness, such gaucherie. You've got no faith in me at all, have you? I have faith in your great appetite for destruction and mayhem, Remus says. Really, yourself. Don't you think Severus Snape has suffered enough? No, Sirius says bluntly. And who said anything about Severus Snape? You'd think you had something against him, the way you project your little fantasies of pain and dung bombs onto his innocent head. Now, great big slimy git Drape, on the other hand, there's a man who deserves to suffer. Well, I'm not going to participate. I wouldn't ask it of you. I knew you wouldn't, fine and upstanding young citizen that you are, as indicated by that shiny little badge on that clean and well-pressed sweater. It isn't pressed, Remus protests. It's all wrinkly, and it smells of chocolate. Sirius waves a hand airily. The point remains that I would never ask you to do something so clearly, rampantly beyond your boundaries. Your participation in this day of days should be strictly on a voluntary basis. Now, wait, Remus objects, feeling insulted for reasons he cannot quite place. Beyond my boundaries? Aren't you even going to try? You try every year. You are a good person, Sirius says earnestly. There's nothing you can do about it, I'm afraid. And nothing I can either. 6 years I've been trying. No, I'm afraid this is quite beyond your grasp. I'm not going to recruit you, and I'm not going to ask for your blessing, and I'm certainly not going to request your considerable research skills in digging up some way to change the passwords in the various towers. Remus trembles. That's unfair, he says. You're using my research against me. Well, Sirius shrugs. Everyone has their little weaknesses, don't they? I mean, I would have done, but we're on such tight schedule, and my field work requires me to be elsewhere, and as we all know, one man cannot be in two places at the same time, and I'm sure it would require speed reading of an almost epic proportion, in a book possibly 3 or 4 times the size of a prefect, capable of eating any lesser researcher alive in the space of perhaps no more than 5 minutes. Sirius shakes his head. No, it's far too much, and your upstanding nature wouldn't allow it, so I could hardly ask such a grueling but challenging task of you. My conscience sings clear in me. I could not allow it. Remus's lips are white around the edges. I know what you're doing, he says. I see your tactics. I don't know what you're talking about. Sirius presses one hand to his chest, hurt stamped plainly across his features. I am merely saying that the book of all books, and the research project of all research projects, is currently living beneath my bed, behind a large box wrapped in brown paper, which, if you value your life and your eyebrows and the hair on the top of your head, you should certainly not open. And it's just waiting for someone to make great use of it. Never once did I say, Mooey, lad, friend, marauder, we need your help in this matter. Desperately, achingly, inside our researchless bosoms. When do you need the information by? Remus grinds out. 12 o'clock tonight would be lovely. Sirius flings his arms around Remus's shoulders, kissing him wildly on the cheek. Good man, good man. Big idiot, Remus corrects him. Big, sopping idiot. And so squishy, Sirius adds, squeezing him around the ribs for good measure. I love it when you flatter me, Remus mutters. It's no surprise when he pats him absently atop the head anyway. All right, Sirius says around a mouthful of potatoes. So, we've got Stage 1 set for 500 hours tomorrow. Stealth Operative Gamma, you'll be positioned where? In the passage under the humpbacked witch, sir. Having just pilfered as many tempting-looking edibles as possible, sir. But not without leaving the correct payment in a prominent place, because there's honor among thieves, sir. Peter yells, jerking to attention and knocking his knife off the table. Very good, soldier, Sirius says gravely, ripping off an immaculate salute. At ease. At which time, Strike Force Alpha, you will be where? Flipping the portrait and changing the password on the Slytherin Tower so they can't get out to breakfast until someone says Severus Snape is a hideous pimple, James says. Which was my idea in the first place, and I'm not calling you sir. That's insubordination, Sirius replies, looking superior. I could have you demoted, keel-hauled. And you, reconnaissance unit Kappa? I'll be in my bed, with my fingers in my ears, pretending I don't know what's happening, Remus recites dully. Precisely, Sirius nods. And I... What's your code name? Peter hisses. What? What's your code name? We've all got code names. Did you forget to give yourself one? I did not forget, Sirius says, highly offended. I don't think it's necessary. You can all address me as Commander. I think you should be Offensive Agent Pie, Peter suggests. Oh yes, Remus says neatly. And we can call you Offensive Pie for short, which I think suits you. Right, Sirius says. I see none of you are willing to take this mission as seriously as I am. I see that you're willing to see this day, this great and glorious day, as just another chance to go to class and make fun of Sirius. Very funny, man. Oh yes, you're very funny. But I hope you're thinking of the traditions that you're dishonoring, of the generations before us, and the generations to come, who will look back on April Fool's Day, 1976, and shake their heads in disappointment and despair, crying, if only they'd pulled through, if only they hadn't let the side down, because that's what you're doing, soldiers. You're letting the side down. You're a disappointment to your God and your country, and frankly, you're a disappointment to me, your commander, who has sweated with you, and toiled alongside you, and bled, and sweated, and teared, and... I know I said sweated twice, so don't open your mouth, Remus Lupin, I'm looking at you. I just want you to think about what you're doing. I want you to examine your attitudes. Maybe you'll find they need to be readjusted. For England. You know, Remus says thoughtfully, the generations before us We probably look forward to April Fool's Day 1976, right? Not necessarily, Peter points out. If they were still alive in 1977, they could look back on it then. You're right. I suppose it depends on the generation. Shut up! Sirius yells. Look, I don't have a code name, and I'll be putting dung bombs under Snape's bed during Operation Dung Bomb number 3, which means James and I will have the cloak, so everyone else will need to exercise extreme caution. Even me? Remus asks. Yes! Sirius snaps. Who knows what the enemy would do if they caught you pretending not to know what was happening? They might wonder what we were up to. Just go under the blankets or something. Am I allowed a light to read by, sir? Is that all right with you, sir? Remus asks. Sirius brings their faces very close, exercising what he hopes is a militaristic air of unforgiving and hard-jawed promise. Only if you are prepared for all possibilities, soldier. Are you prepared, soldier? Do you think you can handle what lies in store for you at the first sign of dawn, 600 tomorrow, soldier? Yes, Remus answers. Can you pass the potatoes? Sirius sighs, slumping back in his chair. Well, you're no fun, he mutters. Here, there's your bloody potatoes. I hope they give you indigestion. We're with you, sir, Peter exclaims, though he gives the potatoes a longing look as they pass him by. I'm with him, but it worries me, James says. We're low on resources. Every last hit must count. Every last minute must be exploited down to the second, and so on and so forth. Here, can I have those potatoes, Remus? Am I working with men or monkeys? Sirius asks the ceiling. I ask you for brave souls, daring recruits, friends who'll never give up the secret of the final dung bomb, and you send me the soft, the weak, the potato fiends. I haven't had any potatoes, Peter protests. Go on, Sirius sighs. I know you want them. Can I really? Peter falls to eagerly. Good man, Sirius says. You tried your best. There are few who can resist the siren call of the potatoes with rosemary. Only the strongest survive. You had 3 helpings yourself, Remus points out. Well then, Sirius beams. Let's have a 4th, shall we? April 1st, 1976. Dawn. The halls are quiet. The day is yet pale, the slim grey of sunrise. Those less dedicated to the cause are still asleep. Sirius Black has already gagged all the house elves in 100-foot radius with kitchen utensils, although most of them, jaded by 5 years' experience, had already done so themselves by the time he entered the kitchen at 4:30 to keep them, as he always puts it, out of harm's way, or, rather, as Remus would say, out of his way. The house elves make muffled, soft sounds of understanding. They are bad house elves. They are meddlesome, tripsy house elves. They should always have fork tongs in their gums, and knives, too. Many, many knives. Sirius leaves them with a warning finger to his lips, before rejoining James outside the kitchens and heading in a direction the professionals generally call down. The Slytherin common room is pitch black. James is speaking in a low voice to the blank wall, which spits and rattles back at him. You know the Mason's word, it hisses. You can command me to change it. Oh, please do hush, James says rather desperately, sending a frantic glance toward the dormitories. I'd rather you cooperated, to be perfectly honest. It's much funnier if you can report to me exactly what happens. Just say the word, and I will be bound to your will. I will not participate in your carbon-based games. Look, it's a long shot, James knows, but it's worth a go. Do you like Severus Snape? Like is a word for glands. Yes, but does he, I've seen him kick walls. Loads of times. The wall remains silent. James thinks it might be mad, but he isn't sure how he knows, and thinks later he might perhaps be thinking like a madman. And, James adds after a moment's thought, I once heard him say the password was stupid. My passwords are never stupid. That's what I said at the time, James says loyally. Muggle smell of jam? I think that's brilliant. Personally, cracking social commentary. But Snape, he goes on these, your voice is unfamiliar. What is your name, student or recently hired professor? Lucius Malfoy, James says, thinking fast. I know you. You were in the 7th year 2 years ago. Yes, and my voice has finally changed. Didn't think those balls would ever drop. Look, I've come back. James passes his shaking hand over his brow. To learn more. You can never have too much learning, is what I always say. Listen, will you please just change it? He does not like my passwords? Hates 'em. Mr. mocks the passwords, that's what we call him, James says. Silence. He wonders if this one might have been overkill, until he realizes the wall is frowning. It's a general frown lingering in the air that, later, James will never be able to explain. Right now it just makes him itchy. You will not like this one. No, says James, not one bit. I will do it. I will not do it for you, Lucius Malfoy, but rather because Severus Snape dishonors the house protect. Lovely! James finally allows himself to breathe out. So, what's the password? Just to, confirm, like. Severus Snape, the wall says, in its frozen, sibilant tones, is a hideous pimple. And we can't get out until we say that. Yes, I will not be moved. Good man, wall, James mutters. He wonders if he should pat it or something, or if that's too personal. Thanks for, restoring the honor of the, bloody brilliant house of Slytherin. It is my duty, the wall cries out. Righto! Finite incantatem. The stones crack and settle back into silence. Mission accomplished, thinks James, and feels a comforting glow of pride. The big boys are back in the game, and Lily Evans had her big, shining, beautiful green eyes framed by those tumbling locks of wild copper hair can go hang. Well, he adds, as he leans against a different wall in what he hopes is not an intimate fashion. He doesn't really mean it, it's just, a saying. That's all. Sirius Black always thought Snape, being possessed of so great and arched a cathedral for an echoing chamber, would snore with all the chaos and sound of a three-ring circus. Sirius Black, crouched beneath Snape's bed, is glad to learn he was always right. He's surprised the bed isn't shaking with the force of it. He's surprised no one else in the Slytherin boys' dormitory has yet suffocated Snape in the night with a pillow to make the madness stop. He's surprised he hasn't yet suffocated Snape with a pillow to make the madness stop. And he would. Oh, how eagerly he would, except that would ruin the first step in the plan and all the steps afterwards. To the rumbling rhythms of Severus Snape and his nose horn, Sirius sets the 55 dung bombs, 2 are left, lonely and sad, in the chest beneath his bed in case of emergency, evenly amongst Snape's things for maximum effect. He snatches a few books as well, but then puts them back. Stick to the plan, Black, he tells himself. Just stick to the plan. Don't give yourself away. In all the history of the world, self-dissolving dung bombs are, Sirius thinks, the most brilliant invention attributed to man. One day, when he is old and no longer capable of carousing on April Fools, his most prized holiday, he will sit down and attempt to achieve such greatness. He has many ideas, of course, for the beginning prankster, as well as the professional and every class that lies in between, but none approach the sheer genius that is the self-dissolving dung bomb. Such application of chemistry, such precision timing, such perfection in a tiny twist of darkly colored magic. Make Daddy proud, Sirius says. He touches each with his thumb, a ritual, a prayer, an offering to the gods. 'Tis a far, far better thing you do than ever you have done. Snape snores. May the force be with you, Sirius says, and flees. At breakfast, One table is conspicuously empty. The rest of the school sends curious glances at it, and there's much speculation, including A. the creation of a new private room for purebloods who don't want their food tainted by Muggle hands, B. an orgy gone out of hand, and C. an annihilating plague. No one seems to know which explanation is most likely until the names Black and Potter come up in the context of April Fools. And all of a sudden, everything makes perfect sense. I heard they let a dragon loose in the dungeons, a second-year Hufflepuff says, wide-eyed. Nah, scoffs his fifth-year prefect. You wouldn't know, you've not been here long enough. I bet you they turned the whole dungeon into an enormous sewer. Must keep that one in mind, Sirius whispers to James across the table, who is vibrating with repressed laughter. Genius! Heard some things about you two, Kingsley Shacklebolt says suddenly, in his voice like tectonic plates shifting, looming over them, as always giving the impression of a tree sprung unexpectedly from the earth. Not going to get you kicked off the team, is it? McCormick'll throw a wobbly. He jerks an enormous thumb at the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, who is eyeing them with great suspicion from the other end of the table, looking quite frightening for someone so petite and blonde. Not likely, Sirius says. He flashes Kingsley a winning smile. It's April Fool's, Kingsley. Don't sit there, he adds quickly. We'll be smelling you for days. That's one of the bad chairs. His fellow beater gives him a long, dark look. Black, you'd better hope I don't sit in anything I don't want to. You too, Potter. Watch it. You can still chase with 2 broken legs, you know, if you're strapped on. On my honor as a Gryffindor, James says. I value my neck, thank you, and my legs, and all my other bits. Right, Kingsley says, granting them both with a short nod. Carry on, then. My blessing. That's a relief, Sirius mutters. Could make a living cracking heads in with a quaffle if he wanted to, that one. He grins after Kingsley and waves until he slides into a seat at the far end of the table. Arms like the mighty oaks. I think he's a little unhinged. Do you see that look in his eye? That I don't like you, unworthy peon look? That's just for you, Peter says. Kingsley is my soul brother, says Sirius, looking rather offended. I have smacked bludgers alongside him for many a long year. Sometimes he waves at me. Don't let him hear you call you that, or I'll smack one of those brotherly bludgers right into your skull, says Peter, and then frowns. Brotherly bludgers, blutherly bredgers, blurther bother. Nothing you can say can bring me down on this most glorious day, Sirius says loudly, leaning back. There should be drinks. Drinks all around the table. Drinks on my dear friend James Potter to celebrate our triumph. James make a face. Have any of you seen Remus? He asks. Nothing, you say, Sirius repeats emphatically, can bring me down on this most glorious day. Drinks, Potter. Drinks. He wasn't around when I woke up, Peter says. I just thought that was because I was late. How could he not be here? Sirius demands. How? How at this hour of our victory? He looks sullenly over his shoulder at the empty Slytherin table. Right now, I bet you, the howls of our vanquished enemy are echoing amongst the rafters, and he is no doubt taking a bath with bubbles in or something else that defeats our grander purpose. He might be in the bathroom, Peter points out. Not at breakfast, Petey, thank you. Sirius folds his arms over his chest. How do you like that? How do you like that? I have 2 extra dung bombs, James. What do you say to... You told him to lie low, James says. Didn't you? I didn't mean it, Sirius mutters. You didn't make that clear. James claps him on the shoulder. Tough luck all round, isn't it? His eyes glance nervously down the table, then flicker innocently to the ceiling, lips quirking into a tuneless whistle. Do you see her? He asks out of the corner of his mouth. Is she looking at me? She's looking at Kingsley, actually, Sirius says. Tough luck all round, just like he said. I hate you! James digs his thumbs into his eye sockets as if trying to actually make them explode. You realize you lost me my girlfriend to the human oak tree. I wish you would just go die. No, you don't, Sirius says reasonably. Let me remind you of all those things you would have to do alone. The explosions and nudity and so forth. Well, you could do them with Peter, again as an afterthought, but he wouldn't be nearly so devious, would you, Wormtail? Not by half, Peter says helpfully. Anyway, Sirius continues, trying to ignore the scene behind James's left ear, in which a giggling Lily is caressing one of Kingsley's biceps, which happens to be about the size of her head. This is but a passing fancy, a momentary phase. I give it 2 weeks before she comes crawling back and you can go have horrible little red-headed babies or whatever it is you two do for fun. Where in the hell is Remus? Oh, go find him, James mutters. Can't. A grin like the sun spreads over Sirius's face, and he fights it down valiantly, even twiddling his thumbs for innocence's sake. Slytherins, 12 o'clock. Phase 1, complete. Enjoyment state commencing now. They look mad, Peter whispers. No sign of Snivellus, is there? Sirius pretends to inspect a broken fingernail while peering out at the scene from underneath wild hair. Do you think he's thrown himself out a window to end the shame and torment? Sirius sighs blissfully. Or perhaps he's fleshed himself down a toilet, or maybe, if we're lucky, he's found himself a dark and sooty corner to weep in until he shrivels up and dies. What do you think, man? Eh? There he is, Peter says and points. Down! Sirius hisses. Down! Utmost caution, subtlety at all times. Do not let the enemy know we know. We know what? Peter asks. Everything, Sirius replies. Oh, Peter ponders this. I understand. He's coming this way, James mutters from the corner of his mouth. Quick, look innocent, now. Snape hurls himself at them, looking even more like a furious crow than usual, and smelling like something unholy. Sirius makes a horrible face and pushes his plate away. Ugh, mate, stand over there, will you? What'd you do? Fall in the toilet? I did not fall in anything, Snape grinds out in deadly tones. But I know that you are responsible. You! The deep olive flush of rage suffuses his face, and he seems lost for words, capable only of trembling, fists clenched. Easy now, Snapey, James says. He holds up his hands amiably. Can't exactly blame us for your personal odor problems, can you? Where were you lot, anyway? Oh, it's all of you! Indeed, from the red-faced Slytherins clustered at their table is wafting an almost tangible miasma of stink. Sirius makes a whew noise, and waves at the air in front of his nose. What happened? Peeves got into the sewage pipes? If looks could kill, the Slytherins would not only have murdered James and Sirius in a singularly nasty and imaginative way, but also defaced their bodies and danced in the remains. I told you, hisses the Hufflepuff fifth-year prefect. Enormous sewer. Snape raises himself up to his full height, which isn't, Sirius thinks, all that impressive, with his skinny hands clenched into small, spiny-looking fists, and his nostrils flared like the sails of a giant boat. Baths, Sirius suggests, an age-old custom. History tells us that it has been employed, in the past, to keep man from smelling like beast. Sirius sniffs, blanches, and waves a hand in front of his nose. Some people, he finishes, are trying to eat Snivellus. You'd know all about beasts, wouldn't you? Snape returns. His lips are a tight, dark line, his face gaunt and angry, but eager. You won't get away with this. Get away with what? James blinks innocently. Don't know what you're talking about, Peter chimes in. You smell like an outhouse, Sirius finishes. Begone with you, dung boy. Beasts, Snape insists, then turns on his heel and stalks away. What a blight on the landscape, Sirius hisses. Moony had nothing to do with it. I say we all steal Snivellus' underwear and put hot pepper in it. Next year, maybe, James admonishes. You're the one who wants to stick to the plan. How about next week? Sirius attempts. Maybe next month? James's expression remains unconvinced. A year is such a long time, Sirius groans. I can't wait a year. I just had the idea now. There are only so many points we can lose, you know, Peter says. Remember third year when we actually went to -30? I think we should try to avoid that. But that was so much fun, Sirius whines, regarding them piteously. Oh, a pox on the selective memories of the depressingly law-abiding. Let us recall that part of the -30 was that one time with the sausages. Oh, right, Peter says suddenly with his little cackle of a laugh. Yeah, and the dwarves we painted blue. Exactly, Sirius says. He settles back in his chair with a look of blissful reminiscence. James. Don't say that doesn't bring a wistful smile of nostalgia to that long face of yours. All right, that was a good time, James admits, grudgingly. Sirius thinks he would probably consider it a surrender to show any trace of anything but the most heart-rending misery, and wants to step on his foot. But no Peppers now. Points or not, it's a waste of energy. The Slytherins will abuse him for us for at least the next month, until the smell fades. Wankers, moving in on my favorite pastime. Sirius drums his fingers impatiently against the tabletop, whistling through his teeth, and then suddenly sits up like a hound at a point and says, Moony, where have you been at? Oh, Remus replies vaguely. About. He settles down at the table, leaning over for some milk, when he pauses, a look of pained intensity crossing his face. What is that smell? Success? Sirius offers. 55 dung bombs, James explains. Well, Sirius sniffs, if you want to be literal about it. Slytherins? Remus asks. He butters a roll, not seeming too surprised, perturbed, or even upset. I take it the chairs are for later on in the day? Festivities from dawn till dusk, that's me, Sirius coos. Is this what you call lying low, eh? There was a lot of noise in the hall. A Slytherin exodus, apparently. Remus snatches the drum from Sirius's teasing fingers and sets to with his knife, which I'm sure none of you had anything to do with. You miss Snivelus, Sirius frowns. You could practically see the smell. It was brilliant, Peter agrees. Oof. James flops forward into his plate. She's fondling his biceps. She's still fondling his biceps, isn't she? Sirius heaves a deep sigh and flings his arms around Peter's shoulders. You and me, Pete, he says. How's that sound? Two visionaries against the wet blanket of the world. You'd get me killed, Peter says flatly. Marauders! Sirius stares around at them, frankly bewildered. I feel like I hardly know you anymore. This is not marauding behavior. This is... We ought to be called the Wet Blankets. Well, he amends, the Wet Blankets and one very lonely marauder, which is not much better. Brilliant name for a band, though, Remus says thoughtfully. Phew! Sirius scoffs. I am shocked at you. Men, shocked and horrified. We've just pulled off a brilliant prank, and by we, I of course mean the most pathetic person in the world, and myself. Snape is about to be hung from the rafters by his own house, and Peter's got us stocked with enough snacks to last a lifetime. Why are there not celebrations? Why are we not drinking? Quaffing even! Quaffing a celebratory ale! I would like to be drunk, James says, confirming his status as most pathetic person ever. We should go drink. Remus is picking at his breakfast, looking slightly ill. You haven't done anything to this, have you, Sirius? Honor among thieves, Moony, Sirius reminds him, looking very wounded. Honestly, what do you think of me? It's just that it tastes strange. Remus puts the roll down, contemplating it with red-rimmed eyes. That's silly. It's just bread and butter and some jam, isn't it? The man can't even hold his jam, and you're speaking of getting drunk. Bah! Sirius folds his arms over his chest and stares moodily off in front of him. You all right, Moony? Peter asks, as James sulks and Sirius sulks, and Remus turns green around the edges. Don't know, actually, Remus says. Right. Bathroom. Glurk. He just said glurk, Peter reiterates, watching Remus flee. Hello, is that Snape looking smug? Sirius's brows knit together. Peter opens his mouth to say something, but shuts it again, recognizing how necessary it is not to interrupt. The jam, Sirius says suddenly. He slams his hand down on the table so that it shakes, and a few Gryffindors voice their protest as only Gryffindors can. Gits, Sirius mutters. It's the jam! That rat! He's put something in Mooney's jam! We did put 55 dung bombs beneath his bed, James points out, although they could have been in his lunch, so he really should be grateful. Stop being so reasonable! Sirius explodes. You're no fun anymore, James. No fun at all! Come on, Peter. Operation Pepper Pants begins as of now! Peter says. He sits back down. He is rather too heavy to be dragged, so Sirius makes a noise of exasperation, abandons him as a dead weight, and storms over to the Slytherin table. As he passes, he hears Rodolphus Lestrange hiss, "Black, you'd better," before he's cut off by an extremely vulgar "Blat!" which sets the entire room to giggling. Heartened by this development, he stalks down the table until he towers above Snape, arms crossed. Snape is, he is very pleased to note, sitting alone at a bench very far away from the rest of his house, who are giving off rays of singular hatred. Right, Sirius says. He twitches as the smell hits, and switches to breathing through his mouth. That's it. Take off your trousers. Take off my trousers? Snape repeats, looking at him askance. Look, Black, I should have realized that all this idiocy and attempted murder was really just pulling my metaphorical pigtails, but I'd rather be slowly devoured by carnivorous ants. No, Sirius says. Anyone more attuned to his nature would understand the danger, however muffled with humor by a nose pinched tightly shut. Off with it. I'm going to put Pepper in a very painful place, and I'd rather do it now than wait till you're asleep. Haven't you had enough fun with me for one day? Snape turns around, pointedly ignoring him. This isn't about me, Sirius snarls, grabbing him by the neck of his robes and whipping him around, too upset to breathe only through his mouth. What did you do to Remus? A horrible little smile curves the corner of Snape's mouth. Whatever do you mean? I think you know perfectly well what I mean. Hardly, Snape says, gazing at him blandly. It's not my fault some people just can't hold their silver. Sirius's molars grind together. I'm going to kill you, he says. Ah, Snape says. So it's not my pigtails you want to pull, am I right? You've tried to poison him, Sirius spits out. You're disgusting. You're pathetic. You smell like a diseased monkey. I'm going to kill you. By all means, Black, Snape says. Do it. Here, in front of the entire school. Enough witnesses to put you in Azkaban for life. I rather think my death will be heralded one day as a great sacrifice for so noble a cause. The corner of Sirius's eye twitches. He pulls his arm back, fist balled into impending knuckly doom. Do it, Snape challenges. His nasal voice sends spasm of disgust down Sirius's spine and deep into his belly. Wouldn't want to improve your face any, Sirius snaps. He pulls away, knocking Snape back down to the bench. Hard. Watch out, Snivelus. Day's not over yet. I'm terrified, Snape says dryly. I assure you, your pathetic attempts at blustering masculinity aside, I'm sure there are a few first-year Hufflepuffs who might be impressed by your bravado, not to mention a currently vomiting werewolf naturally, but I'm not so inclined. Like I said, Snivelus, Sirius repeats. Watch out. What happened? Peter asks as Sirius returns to the Gryffindor table. Did you beat him up? It didn't look like you were beating him up. It looked like you didn't beat him up. It was Silver, James adds, looking animated for the first time in weeks. Wasn't it? You know what this means, Sirius says, twirling his silverware between his fingers. James nods grimly. Oh yes, he says. War.
Thus began the famed prank week of 76, in which the following tasks were executed with so meticulous a hand that even Dumbledore, when at last the perpetrators were caught, was hard-pressed to hide his admiration. Day 1, known as Operation Harry McHarry Pants. Day 2. Remus Lupin would like to affirm before the jury he had nothing to do with this, but was bawling socks at the time of the incident. Day 3. Rabistan was here. Day 4. There are other fish in the sea. Thank God you didn't catch that one. Day 5. It's more hygienic that way, trust me.